What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Rum Pure Sports NFL Week 7 preview. If you watch this show every week, we kind of do a review and preview. Well, we're going to kind of switch it up here and go straight to a preview of Week 7. We have the show on Mondays with JSU, K Falik, and those guys are going over the week's previous week review. So we're just going to do a preview here. We're going to go through and kind of talk about some of the big things injury-wise, news-wise to keep an eye on throughout the week, and then a first look at pricing and see if anything kind of stands out on that forefront. So before we hop into it, I only have Mangone with me today. Title is not with us, and I'm going to make the assumption that is because he's sitting at home peeling to the Bucs season opener tonight, the ring ceremony. Too excited to be on here with me and Mangone. So it's just me and Mangone. What's going on? How's it going?
Yeah, excited to be here talking talking football. I am excited for the NBA tonight. Can't wait. But yeah, title is probably somewhere appealing to the Bucks. It is unfortunate, Hoop. I can't make fun of Giannis as much as I like to used to. Me and Big T always enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun year last year, even though, the finals was a little lame, Bucks and Suns. So hopefully we can get the big boys back into it, right? A little more fun. And I'm excited for this NBA season. It's back to kind of normal where you're not going to see like 1,000, like just slates of like 10 gamers, 15 gamers. So that's going to be fun. But we still got the NFL going on as well, right? That's going to be exciting. And it's like one of the best times of years for me. I love the NBA. I love the NFL. And we'll be grinding them all out and bringing you guys the winners.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for sports in general. If you're a DFS player, obviously it's super exciting because so many different things going on. Got the promo running over here at Rum Pure Sports RPS NBA 15, and if you use that promo code at sign up on a monthly package, you get 15% off your price tag with us for life as long as you don't cancel. So as long as you remain a member, 15% off month after month. Like I've been saying, like if you're on the sidelines kind of waiting for a time to check it out, right now is obviously the best time in terms of the bang for your buck. You get the NFL, you get NBA, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, tennis, soccer, whatever the hell else is going on. Basically any sport on DraftKings and FanDuel, we have content to cover it, and it's all included under one price. Not every time a sport start, we're going to charge you more like some of these other sites. One price gets you absolutely everything on the site. So check it out. That promo code RPS NBA 15 at checkout on a monthly package. Before we get into the full preview, let's kind of talk about, what happened in last night's game with the Bills and the Titans, specifically on the Titans side. And Julio Jones got injured. Imagine that. It was one of the final drives of the game, kind of pulled up lame and never came back. And he was ruled out. That could be important news going into this week. And you combine that with the fact that, man, Derrick Henry is just a different kind of running back right now. It's incredible how fast he's able to go on the break. I mean, we heard about it on the broadcast last night. I mean, they must have mentioned it at least 30 times, the 21.8 miles an hour down the field. They did not miss an opportunity to bring that up. But if he breaks a couple tackles, he has the speed to just go. The price tag on FanDuel is way up at $11K this week. If they're missing Julio Jones, it's obviously a little bump to him as well. Let's just talk about Derrick Henry and the challenges in terms of getting him into our lineups this week. Big boy price tag on FanDuel at $11K. Pulling up DraftKings right now. I'm sure they got him at a cheap price tag. And of course they do at 9.2K. So I think you just locked him in this week against KC. So let's talk about Henry and the Titans from last night.
Yeah, I assume we're going to want to prioritize someone like Derrick Henry, right? He's just in an amazing spot against the Chiefs. The touchdown equity is going to be huge, which is always big for FanDuel as well. The FanDuel price, though, I should look at that. I know the DK one is really kind. I looked at 9.2.
11K.
He's 11K on DK.
Yeah, they've been doing a much better job with pricing. I will say FanDuel has done a much better job overall with pricing.
I agree. I've preferred the FanDuel pricing. The only issue is because the way like FanDuel's salary is structured, it's not like you can get some really nice lineups. That's the only other thing I will say. But man, 11K is expensive, but man, that touchdown equity is important on FanDuel. And he's got 10 on the year, I think is the number. He's got like, I think 4 or 3 more touchdowns more than the New York Jets combined, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I do think Derrick Henry is someone I'm going to try my best to prioritize. It's also a shorter slate because we got the bye week starting to roll in. Not the shortest slates we'll see. I think next week is when you start seeing them a little shorter, when you get into week 7, 8, and 9. But still some bye weeks here that we're going to have. And that's going to be obviously more priority on getting in some of those big boys, right, Hoop? I mean, you're going to see some condensed ownership as well. That's something that's worth talking about. When we get into the bye weeks, Hoop, do you notice that we definitely get a lot more ownership on players because there's obviously just less guys to go to, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at 5, 6 weeks in the book now, so people have things to go on historically when they're building their team. So as the season goes on, you see more people kind of consolidate around the same plays, the same lineups, that sort of thing. But yeah, with Derrick Henry, I think it's going to end up being a no-brainer play on DK at 9-2, especially. We've talked about his activity in the passing game, and it is real. I mean, there's at least 3, I think, screens last night, design plays for him to get catches. He had a couple other dump off. I don't know exactly how many catches he had. I don't have it here, but I know he had a decent chunk. If they're calling plays for him in the passing game, 9-2 on DK, way too cheap. Now, it could be somewhat difficult on FanDuel at 11K to get him in there, but he just currently sits at the top of the running back DFS landscape really by himself. I don't think there's anyone close. I mean, who would be the next guy in line to make the argument for at this point? I mean, I don't really think anyone's there. It's him and probably there's a big gap, I guess I'm trying to say, between him and the next guy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's definitely a big gap. Obviously, if Christian McCaffrey is playing, but it sounds like he had a setback and it might be a little bit longer. But yeah, it does seem like there's going to be a big gap between Derrick Henry this week for sure. And of course, I know last week we saw like the cheaper running backs, right? And the opportunity is so key in DFS. And with those cheaper running backs, like for instance, Khalil Herbert, I know he's going against the Bucs, so it's not the best example, but volume is just so key. And if these guys that were like cheap last week that got volume stay too cheap, well, I mean, that's going to obviously make us want to play these cheaper running backs. Obviously, Derrick Henry can break a slate, but it's important to mention, like Darrell Williams is 5.8K. Now he was 4.9. Now he's at 5.8K. That's getting a little bit more expensive. And I think it's going to be key of what happens with these mid-tier guys and what does a mid-tier build look like? And I love Derrick Henry, but I need to see like the 2v2s and 3v3s off Derrick Henry to really make that decision. And if we gain more value, I think that's going to help you be able to get in a stud like a Derrick Henry. Because again, I talked about it on DK Hoop, like that mid-tier build is so valuable. There's just so many good players within that range. And we saw it last week. Joe Mixon went for a huge game. Jonathan Taylor had a big game. Even DeAndre Swift, he was terrible, but he salvaged and got 18 fantasy points at 6.2K. So the mid-tier build is just so key that we got to wait and see how all the value shakes up, I think.
Well, I mean, you look at the pricing, the options are going to be there to kind of go that route. I think, again, this week, if you want to, just looking at some of the price tags on DK, we've got Leonard Fournette at 6'4". I mean, he's clearly the number one there. He's surpassed Ronald Jones, getting a ton of work. 6'4" for Fournette, really solid price tag. Darrell Henderson, 6.6K in a game where the Rams are favored by, I think, 15 at a lot of big spreads this week, by the way, which we'll talk about at some point. I mean, there's 4 games, I think, with double-digit spreads, but you got Darrell Henderson, 6.6K. That's a very fair price tag. Darrell Williams, I mean, the workload for him was real last week, and he's still under 6K at 5.8. Khalil Herbert, 5.2K, not the greatest matchup against the Bucs, but I mean, do any of those guys kind of stand out to you as way better plays than the next?
Yeah, I mean, the Fournette thing, it's definitely real at 6.4K, someone that I'm not going to ignore. And like, let's say that Christian McCaffrey's out. Well, Chuba Hubbard at 6.1K against the Giants. I mean, you can't ignore him. I mean, that mid-tier is just really loaded. Henderson against the Lions too. And one thing worth mentioning, it's like a common correlator for good, like for really good DFS production for running backs are when you look at spreads being very large, and especially the double-digit spreads. And we have 3 of those on this slate right now. Of course, not the most perfect situations. You have the Cardinals, right? 17.5 point favorites. I mean, James Conner, Chase Edmonds, are you going to mess around with that? Probably not. But Leonard Fournette, like you mentioned, he gets that 12.5-point spread. And then Darrell Henderson at 15.5 points. And like, once you have, like, let's say you plug both those guys in your lineup and you just think they're locks. Well, now you only have one more spot for the running back. So that's pretty important to mention. We should talk about the quarterback position, and we should talk about how, Jalen Hurts continues to look amazing at 6.9K.
Whoa, let's pump the brake. He continues to look amazing for DFS purposes.
Yes,
he is an awful quarterback. Do you agree?
Yes, that is what, that's what I meant. I guess we're on a DFS show, right? So I'm not thinking to say that, but you are correct. DFS wise, he looks amazing because of the rushing upside that he has. Quarterback wise, I mean, I don't want him to lead my team, right? Hoop, I know the Lions have Jared Goff, but you still don't want, I don't think you want Jalen Hurts leading the charge for the next 5 years or so. But no. Jalen Hurts is definitely going to be a really good DFS option. I thought his price would be up to like 7.5 now, but it's not. And you do get Lamar at 7.4, who, hey, the Bengals look a lot better, but that still is a nice price tag on a guy like Lamar for the rushing equity he has. So I think we just got to stress more and more that rushing quarterbacks are very, very important. And I want to just keep keying in on them. Justin Fields gets the Bucs where, you're going to get a lot of dropbacks, which could lead to more rushing. So that could help him out a little bit at 5.3K. But all in all, I'm just kind of trying to mention, hey, like, I want running quarterbacks. That's what I'm trying my best to key in on.
Yeah, and if you tune into the cash show that we do, me, you, and Holden on Thursdays as part of the premium product here, no surprise if you tune into those shows. We spend a lot of time talking about these rushing quarterbacks. The upside's so high. And, this week's no different. Lamar, I was on Lamar last week. I believe you were as well. Didn't work out. It was kind of a fluky game for them where Ingram got a touchdown. Devontae Freeman got a touchdown. Marquise Brown dropped another touchdown. So Lamar could have easily got there, did not. I think a fluky game. I love the idea of maybe just going right back to him this week. Mangone, I know you're a real big, very, very big revenge narrative guy. Matthew Stafford gets the Lions this week. Is he going to go out and try to prove a point? I know he's not a running quarterback, but I do actually think I'm not a huge narrative person. I do think there's some appeal to this narrative though.
Yeah, I guess there's some appeal to it, but I will say, what about on the opposite side? Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford got chipped away because they were just being kind. Jared Goff is the guy who got chipped away because he wasn't wanted anymore, right? That's where the real revenge is, I think. But I'm not playing Jared Goff, I'll tell you that. But Stafford, you are right. It's going to be decent for him. It's in LA too, right? The game. So I guess that helps too with Goff going back to the old place. It's a 33-point total, right? There's people always talk about how points can correlate. And if you saw the Rams game last week, I don't know why they were still running Darrell Henderson into the ground when that game was over, which makes me think that okay, I'm not saying Henderson is going to get ran into the ground for sure, but what if Matthew Stafford is just still out there late in the fourth, just piling on touchdowns, right? It wouldn't shock me. And it seems like the Rams are okay to do that. They just don't care. So it's worth mentioning for DFS that the Rams have a longer leash on their guys, it looks like, which I was pretty surprised about, especially going into a game against the Lions. So I do think Matthew Stafford's touchdown equity is pretty good, and that's always good for a site like FanDuel. So I think that's worth looking at there. And even Cooper Kupp, can we talk about his role, Hoop? Is he like Devontae Adams? It seems like he's at that level, and we just can't ignore it. I've felt that way for the past week or so, but I don't know. I think last week just kind of solidified it even more.
Yeah, so we look at the game. It was 2 weeks ago. Was that the game where Woods went off, I believe, in primetime? Woods went bonkers.
Yeah.
And to me, that's when I really realized that Cooper Kupp has a truly alpha role where Robert Woods goes completely bonkers, goes off, and you could tell Stafford was just focused in on getting Woods the ball. And Kupp still emerges with a decent game, 10 targets. I don't know the exact numbers, but he was still very active when his counterpart or his teammate just went bonkers with all these targets, tons of attention. Right out of the gate, Stafford's looking to Woods. Kupp still ends up with 10 targets in that game. That is when I realized, okay, this is the real deal, where a teammate can go off and Kupp still has a chance to have a respectable game. And, it flung right back to Kupp last week where it just goes off. The connection that him and Stafford has is real. If Stafford gets into trouble, he's looking to Kupp to go along with all the design plays. I think there is a very clear 1-2 right now in the NFL. It's Kupp and it's Adams at the wide receiver position. I think there's a big drop off after that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a big drop off. Also, it's worth mentioning Tyreek Hill's like floor can be bad. He's one of those guys that's up in that range, and we know his floor can be a disaster, but his ceiling, like Tyreek Hill's ceiling, is like just incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's because like he can just break like 80-yard touchdowns, and like Devontae Adams can do that too. Cooper Kupp can, but not at the same level of Tyreek. But overall, yes, I agree. Adams and Kupp, they're in the same tier for sure. What do you think of some of these other wide receivers on this slate? Obviously, like the Bucs are a pass funnel, right? Hoop, like I want to attack the Bucs, but like I don't know, am I actually gonna like play Allen Robinson against the Bucs? Like I want to because he's so talented, but I have some fears, and I did it with the Dolphins, and it didn't work out totally. And of course, the next week Waddle breaks out, right? Kazeki breaks out against the Jaguars. It was super frustrating, but I don't know how I'm going to handle that situation because I think the Bucs being a pass funnel is something I've been wanting to target, but the Bears is an offense that's just absolutely anemic, and I just don't even want to be near. So I don't know what to do with him at that 5.1K price tag because Hoop, it's getting very, very cheap.
Yeah, it's way down there. It's the matchup that you want against the Bucs. These wide receivers. The problem is Fields, and he just has not looked like a good passing quarterback. And the guy he has the best connection with on the team is Mooney. It is not Robinson, and that's different than every other Bears quarterback that we've seen recently. Any quarterback they plug in there, the connection has been real. With Allen Robinson, it appears Mooney and Fields have a better connection than Fields and Robinson. So I'm a little concerned there. But yeah, I mean, it is the cheapest price tag basically that we've seen on him. Another guy I want to mention in the cheapish range, and I was on him a little bit last week, and the price really didn't move all that much, is Mecole Hardman. Tyreek obviously though a little dinged up and didn't get his full allotment of snaps. If it's a lingering injury like it was last week, you can get Hardman at 4.3K. You get exposure to the Chiefs. It's a huge total in that game. The total is 57. Chiefs favored by 6. So massive, massive team total for the Chiefs again this week, which is nothing out of the ordinary. Any interest in a guy like Hardman at 4.3? I mean, obviously things could change throughout the week if we get some better value or some standout value. But out of the gate here, Hardman is a guy I'm very interested in.
Yeah, I mean, and you should be, right? I think we can't ignore him. It is worth mentioning Tyreek Hill was like on and off the field last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's important. And Mecole Hardman is definitely in a really nice role. So I'm not going to ignore him. And also the Titans, I think they're giving up the most like points to receivers in fantasy. So I am not going to ignore this Chiefs passing game. It's going to be a priority for me. And look at the totals this week, right? 56.5 total on that Chiefs Titans game. Next closest total is 50.5 with the Lions and Rams.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a full touchdown. We're not counting the extra point then there, but that's a full touchdown. So that's going to be very important. And I think you're going to want to be loading up on guys from that game. So I'm not going to ignore that at all. It's going to be a fun week. I am curious to see, like last week, I think a lot of the conversation Hoop towards the end of the week as like Saturday and Sunday was coming is how much ownership in tournaments is going to gravitate towards this Chiefs and Titans game. I think the same conversation is going to happen again this week, Hoop. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to want to get exposure. I mean, it's a massive total, like you said. I mean, big time total. What a full touchdown, bigger than any other game. If Julio Jones is out, which I would not be surprised, another name at the wide receiver position who looked really good in the second half of that game, despite being sick, AJ Brown, 6.3K. That's going to be another way to get exposure to that big total. If we do go like the balanced route at running back, like we were talking about, I think AJ Brown is a guy that needs to be at the top of your list at the wide receiver position if you choose to go that balance route and don't play Henry at wide receiver. Thoughts on AJ Brown here?
Yeah, I know he was dealing with the food poisoning last night. So like
Yeah.
he was getting shot with IVs all game. He should probably be fine. And if Julio obviously doesn't play, that's huge for AJ Brown. I don't have it from last night. I don't remember seeing it. Kay Fallick kind of talked about it in our Discord chat, which again, that's a good reason to sign up at Rumpier and get in the Discord to see this stuff. He's talking in the Showdown. And he was saying Marcus Johnson, he felt like was kind of a a guy that would replace Julio, and then he thought that Nick Westbrook would replace AJ Brown. Now, I don't know if that actually came to fruition, but it's worth mentioning that one of those guys will replace them. So we need to figure out what that's going to be, monitor all that news, because I think that's going to be really key. And that was some of the stuff the beat writers were talking about before the game, that K Falk was posting some of that info. So again, really important stuff that you got to check out. I do think that if Julio sits, obviously AJ Brown at that price tag is going to be someone we're going to want to slam into our lineups and get some exposure to.
Yeah, a couple more names at the wide receiver position that stand out. For some reason, these Bucs guys are coming in super cheap. You got Chris Godwin at 5.9K on DraftKings. That's a value price tag. Mike Evans, 6.5K. He was kind of the odd man out last game. You have to imagine that they get him involved at some point. Those two guys kind of stand out to me as pretty solid value plays. Antonio Brown's in the middle there between those guys at 6'3". I don't think it's a bad idea to get some exposure here to the Bucs passing game. My preference on DraftKings would probably be Godwin, and he happens to be the cheapest. Thoughts on these Bucs pass catchers?
Yeah, the Bucs pass catchers are definitely in play. Actually, the craziest thing about the Bucs pass catchers, I don't know how I stumbled upon. I was like looking up some stats, and the Bucs pass catchers, Mike Evans is, I think he's the leading receiver, or it's Antonio Brown's the leading receiver with 420 receiving yards this year. Mike Evans is like number 2 on the team at 412, and Chris Godwin is 409. So like they're literally separated by 11 yards between all of them. So it makes sense just to buy low on the cheapest one, or I guess if you think there's like a matchup based guy that's better. But Antonio Brown, I think, has looked the best of all. If I was just like saying who is my favorite that I've watched so far and looks the most talented, it feels like AB. Would you agree? But he is more expensive.
He looks like he looked about when was he in his prime? Probably 3-4 years ago. Like he looks very similar to that. He gets deep balls, he gets these short ones where he makes a guy miss and he kind of takes off. Very active in all facets of the game. I think he looks phenomenal this year. I think he might be the one that comes in the lowest owned. Not that really matters all that much in cash games, but in tournaments, I think people are going to see that the price tag has come up on him and maybe go to these other guys a little bit more. But man, I think they're all great plays when you consider their price tags. One last guy, we talked about Kupp a little bit. Our boy Robert Woods continues to get it done too, and he is 6.4K on DK, and the Rams have a massive team total over over 30. If you're not able to get the Kupp at 8.4K, I think looking up Woods at 6'4" is something you definitely should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't ignore Robert Woods. I think he's in a good spot. The only problem I have is like I worry they're just going to get up and run a ton, and like I don't know, I just want the game to interact a little bit more. I think Woods makes more sense on the site like FanDuel just because of the touchdown equity. Because I mean, 33 points, there's going to be touchdowns scored in that game for sure. Worth mentioning with the Bucs too. I mean, they have a 30 total. I know we talk about the receivers a ton and liking them, but the touchdown equity is going to be huge for them as well. So yeah, I think Woods is fine. I guess one of the issues is I don't know if it's going to be the best week to go for. And I feel like I'm going to probably look to get a lot of Henderson exposure, but if Robert Woods is low owned in tournaments, right, he could be an amazing leverage play this week. So that's definitely something that you can consider for sure.
All right, let's check out the tight end position. Last week, I thought there were 3 guys that stood out as very strong plays at the tight end position. And what do you know? You come to the position this week, and I think there's 3 guys that stand out. Maybe 4. There might be a 4th that we can add there, but for some reason, DraftKings refuses to budge the price on Ricky Seals-Jones. I know he was like 2.5K, then they got him to 3. Now he's 3.7, and that is still too cheap for him. And the role that he has in this offense. Travis Kelce price came up a little bit, 7.6, still a strong play in my opinion. And then Mark Andrews is kind of regressing back to his normal production that we're used to seeing, back-to-back really strong games. Lamar Jackson obviously loves to throw to him. The Ravens are throwing the ball a little bit more as well, and he is 6K. Then the 4th guy I think we can add to the list is Dallas Goedert with the Zach Ertz trade. He's 4.6 and facing the Raiders. So those are kind of the 4 guys I think that are in the front of this tight end position. Any thoughts on those guys this week?
Yeah, I mean, so Travis Kelce's price got a bump. So he's at 7.6 now. I thought he was like way too cheap last week at 7K. FanDuel, he's 8.2. And I guess the thing is the tight end position is typically if you can get like just an absolute amazing score, right? Like you can just spread the gap so big in GPPs and in cash games where it's hard to catch up in other areas. We should talk about Kyle Pitts at 5.9. Like Kyle Pitts is going against the Dolphins and it is on the road, and you have to trust Matt Ryan. But he did look really good last week, but that was without Calvin Ridley, which we didn't talk about Calvin Ridley's price. Like, I assume he is going to play, and it's off of the bye week, and that could obviously help someone like Kyle Pitts, who maybe as a tight end is understanding the offense a little better. Obviously, the bye week could be big for him, but Calvin Ridley's price at 6.6, I like a ton, but I mean, I'm not going to ignore Kyle Pitts at 5.9 too. I think he could be in play. I think Mark Andrews is interesting at 6K, but I am going to try my best to get the Travis Kelce. I think he's going to be someone that I want to get into my lineups this week. And then Mike Gesicki, even at 4.7, is someone to not ignore as well. So I think in tournaments, there's a lot of different ways you can go at tight end. And even Tyler Higbee, 4.5, right? If Tyler Higbee catches 2 touchdowns, you leverage all of those Rams plays and you gain on the field at the tight end position. And you can pair it up with a guy like Matthew Stafford that you said you liked a little bit in tournament soup. So I do think that Higbee is going to be in play this week. And I think there's a lot more options you can go to at tight end. Like even Ricky Seals-Jones just seems like he's too cheap and they're likely going to be trailing against the Packers. And I'm not scared of this Packers, defense. So I think this is one of the deepest tight end weeks we've had this week, Hoop. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's deep. I mean, and again, to me, it's very similar to that of last week where we have guys in every pricing tier. We got Kelce up top, we got Andrews, kind of in the middle a little bit. You got Seals-Jones in the middle, and then to go along with all the other guys that you mentioned as well. There's a lot of different plays here at the tight end position, and all this could potentially change throughout the week if we get some big news or some big injury news, whatever it may be, but. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a first look. I know we kind of focused more on DraftKings pricing. Let me go ahead and pull up FanDuel here real quick and kind of see. And okay, so you go to the quarterback position. It looks like we're probably going to be spending up. You got all the best guys under 9K. Mahomes at 8.8, Kyler at 8.7, Lamar at 8.4. Really good price tag on all those guys. Running back position, like we said, they did a much better job with Derrick Henry. He's 11K. That's a big price tag. And when you start building out your team, you put an 11K running back in there, things can get difficult. Maybe Henry comes in lower owned on FanDuel, something to monitor throughout the week. But the sites, they both messed up on this Leonard Fournette price tag. 6.4 on DK and then 7K on FanDuel. I don't know what else they want to see out of him, but it's going to be a tough price tag to pass up on. Darrell Henderson, they did a better job at 8K. Hubbard 7.3. So all around better pricing, I think, on FanDuel opposed to DraftKings. Wide receiver position, got Cooper Kupp all the way up at 8.8. We got Devontae Adams at 9K. A lot of the same guys, to be honest with you, that we kind of talked about on DraftKings. What's AJ Brown's at 7K? I definitely like that price tag if Julio were to sit. And then at tight end, I think things change a little bit for me. Mark Andrews, they priced up to 7.5K, which that's a pretty big price tag. But Darren Waller is under 7K now. Darren Waller is 6.8K, kind of stands out there. Your boy Kyle Pitts, 6.1K, so better price tag for him on FanDuel. As well, but a lot of the same. Anything kind of stand out to you, or just a lot of the same between the sites?
Oh yeah, the Andrews thing is a big bump for sure. The Pitts does seem interesting at 6.1. I mean, but Gesicki there 6K. Higbee's not a bad one at 5.5, and that's really cheap for Higbee. I saw Zach Ertz is there at 5.3. The Cardinals, we should talk about that a little bit real quick. Like they're just too much of like a guessing game for me that even though they have like a massive total, I'm probably just going to stay away from. I saw the Zach Ertz price and I was like, okay, that's interesting to see. I wonder where that's going to go to. I mean, in tournament, sure. I mean, he could obviously do well, but it's like the first week on a team, tight end's a complicated position. People forget you have to know how to how to run and also block, and like the synergy with the linemen. There's a lot going on. So probably wait and see on that. Don't just get too excited about it, I would say. And yeah, overall, I think it's going to be a week where a lot of people are gravitating to a lot of the same stuff. They're going to gravitate to Bucs. They're going to gravitate to Chiefs Titans game. And I think they're going to gravitate towards the Rams. And not to say that that's a bad thing to look at all three of those teams, but like whatever, they all seem very similar. So like, feel free to gravitate towards like whichever one's the lowest owned in tournaments, right? I mean, I think the Rams were a great case of that last week, and I think the week before the Bucs were a great case of that. And yeah, they're going to be one of those teams where I'm going to look for in tournaments, maybe which one's the lowest owned and go to that. And that's kind of how I'm going to handle it.
Yeah, I just kind of look for these games that have totals like a little bit like below those top totals. And one that kind of stands out to me just from a game perspective would be like the Eagles and the Raiders game. 49 total, very respectable, close to 50. Probably goes overlooked because everyone's going to go to those big totals that we talked about: Chiefs, Titans, Rams, even the Packers. But that game, I think, is one to kind of keep on your radar this week. Totals 49. Pretty close spread. The Raiders only favored by 3. Neither defense is all that good. So that kind of fits into, Jalen Hurts, Goddard, Waller, plays like that, Ruggs in tournaments. I think there could be some goodness in that game. So just something to kind of keep an eye on throughout the week.
Yeah,
it's actually funny because I pulled up the chat. I said, any questions? And the first question from Richie Smalls is, the Raiders Philly game a sneaky one to target?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that's a good call. This actually piggybacks off when you're asking about injury stuff, right? Like Antonio Gibson was dealing with an injury, and a clear, easy stack that could be really good is Rodgers to Adams and ran back with JD McKissick, and just not messing around. Like, I'm not saying McLaurin's needed, and you can go to him, but he's super cheap McKissick, where if Gibson's out, right, it's going to be a really good spot where it's a lot of condensed stuff, and you don't have to play the guessing game. One issue I have with the Eagles and Raiders is like, good luck guessing who's going to be the guy that benefits the most. Now, of course, if you're a 150 guy, sure, you can mess around with that, but I'm someone that's more of a one lineup guy or 3-entry max. So I try to take the guessing game part out of it if I can with some of these teams and just avoid them, because I still think I can get really good low ownership spots in tournaments without having to just guess which guy it's going to be. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, but I'm not going to ignore Jalen Hurts in that game. I can promise you.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of turned into the garbage time master of NFL DFS. Teams not winning games, but he is going to get there basically every single week, fantasy wise. It's kind of.
I don't even mind like a small stack of like Hurts and like Waller, right? Like, you don't have to go full. Like, I think people are getting like they just want to like go with like the full on, okay, let me go Hurts to Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert and run it back with like a guy. Like, you don't have to do it. I think you can just go with the smaller stack, especially with a running quarterback, and you're still okay in tournaments.
I agree with you. I mean, I think the big winners this week really didn't have all that much correlation in the GPPs. So you don't always have to do it. Historically, it's been the way to go. But I agree with you. I think people are kind of overdoing it a little bit in terms of the pairing correlations and things like that. So, all right, that's going to probably do it. Anything else that kind of stands out to you? Anything we're keeping an eye on? We have the few injury things. I'm sure there'll be more that pop up. If you're playing Showdown, I will say Hunt out, Chubb out as well. So I don't know what the hell that the Browns will do for running back. But if you're playing that Showdown slate, I'm sure there's going to be some extreme value on the Browns side. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I know Teddy Bridgewater sounds like he's good to go too. I know he was dealing with some stuff. Melvin Gordon's been dealing with some issues, but like, I assume they'll just have him go out there. And I guess if you are playing that Showdown, it depends which guys. I don't know what the salaries are going to be on these guys, so that matters. I don't know if they adjusted it properly, but Odell Beckham probably is still too cheap, and I don't know what his ownership will be. It could be really high, but he could be involved more in the run game, right? Hoop. I think they could definitely. You could see a couple, reverses for him here and there, which could be of value. And on top of that, if you do think that they're gonna let's say you don't want to play the run game in Showdown as much, like load up on like the double tight ends, right? Like who's gonna play Hooper and Njoku together? I mean, sure, maybe some will, but the Browns are the team that will run a lot of double tight end, and both tight ends could easily get there. And it could be a very low scoring game where if both score touchdowns, they're both on the winner very easily.
Yep. No, I'm with you. You gotta look to get unique, get different. And that is certainly one way to do that in the Showdown formats. All right, we are going to get on out of here. We'll be back next week. Like I said, moving forward, this show will be more, it will be a preview opposed to review. On Mondays, we have JSU, K Phallic, and there's one other person. Who's it? You know who the third person is on that one?
It's Tambo.
Tambo, yes. So JSU, K Phallic, Tambo reviewing this slate on Monday. Tuesday is going to be the preview. Hopefully, Title is back with us next week. His Bucs start tonight, so he kind of, I'm assuming he's got to get himself all ready for that big game, the big ring ceremony tonight. So he's not with us. Should be back next week. But yeah, that's going to do it. So for Mangone, Hoop, we'll be back next week for the Week 8 preview. Good luck in your contest this week.